understand who the bad versus good actor is.
Well, and it's tough because Silver Lake and WP Engine are doing dozens of bad things. So we could probably be clearer in our messaging because they're doing so many bad things, they kind of overlap.
Yes. So I'm just going to be real with you. When you talked about the revisions thing, it's hard because then they go, we do daily revisions. And then you're just like arguing over technical small things. And it's just
Yeah,
really
so
hard for us to understand, okay, but who's the
I'll
bad
try to explain
actor?
that a little better. So WordPress has an undo feature. So they do daily backups, but they turned off the undo feature basically. So you
Okay.
can't undo things. Uh, and they're doing it just to save money because it costs money to store the revisions. So
Yep.
yes, so imagine if you like made a change to your site, like a page, you updated a page, and you're like, oh man, I want to go back. You can't do that. You'd have to go back to a backup from a day before and lose all the changes you made since whenever that backup was, and it would be tough to restore. Versus built into WordPress, you just click a button and you could go back a previous revision. So that's part of what they're turning off. But that's just one example. They're doing it to make money. WP Engine is a $500 million company, does probably 50, 60 million in free cash flow profits. They're wildly profitable, and part of it's because they sort of squeeze every. They really neuter WordPress to make it honestly kind of crappy, and to make as much money from it as possible. They call it WordPress, but it's not really WordPress. It's like their own version of it.
All right. Hold on. Wait, were you suspended? No, Matt Mullenweg is suspended. Account suspended. That's right, because you're photo Matt. There we go. I went to Matt Mullenweg on Twitter. And am I saying your name or last name correct?
I'm Photomat on Twitter, and I'm Matt Mullenweg on Twitch.
There we go.
Yep,
Yeah,
you're
no, I
saying
just
my name great.
there we go. There we go. All right. So here we go. This is who we're talking to for those that can't see. Matt.
Howdy, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. Look at this. Look at me following you. I'm such a nice guy. All right. Anyways.
Oh,
Okay. So by the
thanks.
way, Lex Friedman has he also said thank you for WordPress. Been using it since the early days.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. I'm a huge fan of Lex.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
So help us understand a few things. Let me just tell you what I understand as of now. This is how it looks like looking through a few of the legal docs, looking through the posts, trying to understand it. For a long time, WP was free to use as part of the terms and conditioning. Sometime this year, maybe middle of the year, that was changed. And then WP Engine, shortly before WordCamp, started receiving messages that they must pay or else.
Yeah,
This is just what we've read online, right?
sure.
And then
I
at
mean,
that
that doesn't
point,
even make sense from a business point of view, right? So,
yeah. And then
um,
WordCamp, then effectively at WordCamp, you
well, can we address that first stuff first?
sure, yeah.
I don't
First
want
stress,
to,
yeah.
we don't want to stack too many things. So, uh, WP okay to use. Yes, there's thousands of things that use WP, WP Beginner, WP. Most of them don't confuse consumers.
Yeah.
Um, WP Engine is very confusing to consumers. For example, until today, they had a plan on their website for sale that was called Core WordPress. It was like their $50 a month plan or something. It's called Core WordPress. What does Core WordPress mean to most people? What's it mean to you?
It just means the core features of WordPress is how I guess I
Yeah,
would take that. I'm more
they were selling
software-y,
that.
so it's probably bad to ask me because maybe my opinions
Yeah,
aren't.
they were selling that as a plan name that they were selling to customers. Now they change it to like call it something else. They call it growth or something. But you can kind of tell all the stuff that the lawyers are making them do are all examples of things they were doing wrong. So those are trademark violations. So
Okay.
yeah, so that yes, they use WP, but they do it. They've done so many things on top of that are really confusing to consumers, far above the legal threshold, which by the way is 15% of consumers confused for trademark violations. And so, yeah, we try to use the trademark. And by the way, they've built a $500 million business. They've given nothing back to WordPress. They were contributing 40 hours per week, so call that 100 grand per year. Um, they sponsored WordCamp for 75 grand. We allowed them to be a top sponsor. By the way, lots of people wanted those spots.
Yeah, I was about to say sponsorships don't count because you're buying marketing, you're not buying. That's not
Yeah,
considered giving. Or at least I personally don't consider sponsoring a conference giving back to the community. I've never considered
and
that. I don't think that's fair.
I've done everything I can to try to bring WP into the fold. I spoke at their conference last year. Like they have this proprietary marketing conference called Decode. I allowed them to be a top sponsor and have a big booth at WordCamp. Like I was really doing everything I could. And these talks and negotiations, they said like, oh, he just showed up at WordCamp and said, pay me now or else. No, this is going back years. And the bad behavior did start in 2018 when Silver Lake took over WP Engine. They were actually a pretty cool company before. Flywheel was also way cooler
Can,
before WP Engine
can you
bought them.
help me on the trademark stuff? So because I know at one point in the Wayback Machine it says WP is free to use, and that's that. So when did the change happen?
It still says that. So you can still use WP. You can, like I said, WP beginner. There's lots of WP plugins. There's lots of WP things. Um, just how they were doing it is a egregious violation of trademarks. And as a trademark holder, Automatic has, the commercial owns a commercial trademark. Um, they can choose who to go after, right? So if someone was using WP in a way that wasn't, causing harm, or maybe they're using WP or WordPress, but they're also giving back to the community, awesome. By the way, WP Engine had the option in the deal I offered them. They could pay a trademark fee, or they could pay that in salaries and hours of contribution, or any combination. They could do 4% and 4%, 8% and 0%, 7 and 1. So they had that option to make it contributions, and they chose 0. So that was why they just tried to delay, which they've been doing for now, 18 months basically.
Okay. All right. So I guess the next obvious question is why now, and not say a year ago when WP Engine was still WP Engine, or 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, or a decade ago? Like, at what point did this become something that must be addressed, and in this way? Just help me
And this
understand
is
from this
where
perspective.
I might be a bit naive. Um, most companies in the WordPress ecosystem, we have great relationships with, and when they say they're going to do something, they do it, and they contribute back. And in fact, other hosts do have a trademark agreement, and they pay for it. And other hosts give back way more than WP Engine, even though they make way less revenue. So, um, yeah. So I just kind of believed that they kept saying they were going to do something for years, and there's a lot of friendly people there, and I guess I didn't realize how like capricious and evil like private equity could be. So that is totally my fault. I apologize for that. Um,
Okay, because I always thought, because that, I mean, at least from an outsider, that feels very confusing. Like, why today? Why not a year ago? Why not at some point? Because it makes it feel more petty, at least from my perspective. Just throwing that out. And I
No,
think
so
I
these
represent some
negotiations have been
amount.
going for a long time. And
Okay.
like I said, and people can confirm this, I was literally, calling and trying to connect with them. If they had just even said verbally, like, they could have tried to change the percentage, whatever, negotiate. But they were just like, nope, not anything,
Okay.
let's delay, delay, delay.
And I assume you have some sort of like actual in paper trail to represent like the repetitive communications over the course of years, being like, hey, you're still not contributing back and all that. Because I
Yeah,
just
I
assume
mean,
that exists somewhere because at some point that comes out, right?
they published some of my text messages and they tried to make it look like I was,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
We read those yesterday.
yeah, it's sorting them last minute or something, but like that was me like trying like, hey, I really don't want to give this presentation. I don't want this fight. I don't want to like I really want there to be peace and for you to be a great part of the community.
Yeah.
And in fact, they could sign a trademark license today and all this would go away. So it's totally in their hands to do a deal. They just don't want to. They feel like they can sort of smear my name, attack WordPress.org, do the cease and desist, delay, bring out all this misinformation.
Yeah.
They they fired an incident report against me that said I berated them and cursed at them in their booth. Now, if you ask anyone who knows me, I actually don't curse. Like I don't use curse words at all. And they put information out there saying that I told them to F off, which is not true. And there were witnesses there. And one of the witnesses left a comment on Reddit, Jake McGold, who's one of the founders of 10up, a large WordPress agency. That comment had like negative 40 karma um, because people were voting it down. So they have this whole coordinated campaign to make me look bad and to hide anything that sort of shows all the evil stuff they've been doing. Something else that was posted on Reddit is allegedly they have taken the Stripe plugin. So part of how WooCommerce makes money, they also violate the WooCommerce trademark, by the way. Uh, Part of how WooCommerce makes money is with a deal with Stripe. And so on WP Engine servers, they essentially hack the Stripe plugin to change the attribution code to go from us to them, which is probably tens of millions of years in revenue.
So
That's like making away from WooCommerce.
they
Yeah,
override the Stripe attributor or whatever it is that does that.
yeah.
I assume you've talked to them about this, that you've had many
Of
conversations.
course, of course. Yeah, these things go back months.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I've had meals with Heather numerous times. I've had meals with Lee. These are people I've known for years. So please don't think that this was some sort of like out of the blue thing. Um, it was more I was being led on. So I feel dumb for that. But like at some point, it was like, okay, you keep saying you're going to do something and you keep not doing anything. Um, you know, I'm going on stage later this week. Given this presentation, do you want it to be about how you've delayed for years, or do you want it to be about, well, just not mention it at all? To be honest, I was just going to do a Q&A.
All right. So I guess another question would have to be then there's other, like you even mentioned, there's a lot of other WP style ones or even things that mention the word WordPress. Do they also have the same requirement to pay some sort of money? Or what is the threshold in which you approach these other companies and make them pay money? Like, so what is like, I guess, the rules in which you apply?
That's up to the trademark owner. So Automatic can choose to do deals and with anyone. That's sort of the right of the trademark owner.
Okay.
So
And so has there been other people in which you've effectively done similar type things and they are just like, okay, yes, everything is this way, or is this the first one?
I would say that every other web host in the world we have no beef with, by the way, and that none of them, all of them can, their servers can access WordPress.org servers. WordPress works just fine on every other web host in the world. This is very singular to WP Engine.
Okay. Um, so just so you're clear, I don't feel
And
anyone
if
who's
people are
listening
complaining
doesn't feel
about
like you
GoDaddy,
answered the
Bluehost, whatever,
question.
I'm fine with all of those. Those
Okay.
things are, they're all fine with all of them.
Okay. Okay. This is good information. So then let's just forward to what has been done with the no updating. I know you speak a lot about the community and how you want the community to be really good and healthy. How does this decision help the community? Or do you think that this hurts the community as much as it hurts WP Engine? Because from an outsider, it looks like the community is collateral in this situation. So they're getting hit. They're feeling worried. I bet you there's a lot of panic communication going from people that maybe feel like the world's on fire. And, in reality, not being able to update currently for one day is not like the world's not exploding yet. But at some amount of time forward, it will start actually becoming a problem. So how do you reconcile those two things, caring about the community and also having the community pay a price on behalf of WP Engine?
Yeah. And this is probably where I haven't done the best job explaining. So maybe you can
Yeah.
help me. Um, so when you run WordPress on WP Engine, they actually control the code. You don't control the code like on other hosts. So that's part of how, for example, they changed the revisions thing or something they did. They actually broke thousands of sites where they tried to hide the meetups widget and the news widget because they didn't want people to see my blog post. And they messed it up. So they unilaterally changed the code. Sorry, I'm getting a call. They unilaterally change the code across their 1.5 million WordPress installs whenever they want. So they can deploy that instantly. So they control the code. So they could host a mirror of the plugin directory. They could host a mirror of the updates. All of this is GPL and open. Those 1.5 million sites that call all the SaaS services on WordPress.org. You could imagine that probably costing millions of dollars per year in infrastructure and cost and
Yeah.
development time and everything to support those 1.5 million sites.
Yeah, that stuff is very expensive. I get that. CDNs alone, even just transferring data, is very expensive.
And again, they have donated $0 to the WordPress Foundation. They have no deal with WordPress.org. They have no trademark license. They've done so little and been so successful. They built a $500 million a year business. And if you have to ask yourself, how do they build it? It's partially on the backs of confusion with the WordPress trademark, which is what we're trying to ask them to stop and why they're fighting so hard to not do it.
And so, okay, So does that mean there is some level of monetary? So is there some sort of understanding or expectation that if you become very successful in WordPress, you need to give something back? Because I'm just trying to understand that, because you say they made like $500 million. Like, congratulations, that they made $500 million. That's a lot of money, right? But is it a requirement that they give back?
What's a requirement? Is there a law that says you have to give back? No. There is a law that says you can't violate the trademark. So that's
Yeah.
that's the law that we're using to try to encourage them to give back. But yeah, I mean, the code is open source. You can do whatever you want. Now, it's a good business practice. If your entire business is built on someone else's intellectual property, then yeah, you probably should contribute to it in some way. And that could be in code, it could be in volunteering hours, it could be in organizing word camps or something like that. Everything they say they contribute. If you look at their blog post that says, here's 10 years of giving back, it's all just marketing stuff for them.
Hmm.
It's like it's a conference we run that promotes us. Here's a magazine we run called Torque that just promotes us. They actually have a cool thing called Local, but if you look at Local, it just sells WP Engine hosting. Like, it's not like it's not something they do as a charity for the community.
But I mean, there's also like tons of other open source. Like, I mean, think about React. React alone has had how many billion-dollar companies on top of it, but they have no way to enforce some sort of monetary thing back, or NPM, right? You make, like, think about how many people make money off of NPM and
Yeah.
CI and NPM, yet there's no kind of take back on that. I think that might be part of the confusion, is that we're trying to understand why, like, what is this threshold, or why is this? But let me try a
Well, the
different.
things you just said, like NPM and React, those are like developer tools, right? So you
But
build an
NPM has
application.
infrastructure cost, right? NPM
Uh,
pays quite a bit of money because they have to transfer all this data and all that. So I'd say they fall much more in line with WordPress org, in the sense that they actually have a bunch of, they actually have to set up infrastructure and keep it running at all times.
yeah, you could think of it like lines of code, you know? So let's say WooCommerce is 4.5 million lines of code. The Stripe plugin that we wrote that they hack was like, 35,000 lines of code. Their modifications were like 3,000 lines.
Yeah.
So that's how much value they're creating on the like millions and millions of lines of code. And same thing. So like, yeah, React, like we use React, we build Calypso on top of it and other things. Um, but like what you get from them is WordPress. It's, by the way, it's the same thing you get from all the other hosts. So you can get this from Bluehost or other places. So and I encourage people to explore some of these other hosts, because again, WordPress will work better and they all give back to the community much more than WP Engine currently does.
If you could rewind the clock 2 weeks, would you take any different action than has currently been action, or do you think there's better ways you could have gone about this?
I can sleep soundly at night knowing that I did everything I could to try to do a deal with them. So I have no qualms there. I know maybe they're trying to make it look bad from the outside, but yeah, I feel good there.
Okay. Okay, that's really good. Well, thanks for trying to clarify some stuff. I think, honestly, the things that would really help the community out a ton, at least what I'm hearing, just a flood of them, because I don't know if you're paying attention at all to chat. It's just a wall of text, of just various questions.
Yeah.
But
Do we
I'd say
want to
that,
try to address some of those?
well, the big two are this, because I asked you one, and you didn't give a solid answer on, which is who else
Yeah.
effectively has to pay trademarking. When do you do
I,
trademarking? Like, a
I
clear
know people are saying they don't like me. I'm sorry. I'm actually really tired right now. This
yeah.
stuff, I think it attacks so much.
I
I
can
could
imagine you've
barely
had
sleep last night.
an
I actually like
eventful few
vomited
days.
at one point. I'm
Yeah.
I'm like not feeling the best. So I know this is a video stream. I probably don't look the best, but please.
Oh, you look great. Don't worry about how you look. I mean, don't worry. You have me next to you. I'm like,
But
don't
let's
worry.
get to the questions. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that would be just a big one, because you didn't give a solid answer on that, which is twofold. Like, are there more than just WP that's paying or attempting to pay trademark things? And do you have some sort of rule in which you apply? And if there is any answer to those two things, I think that would really help people. And then obviously the second one is just historical communications. Do you have proof that this has been a long-term, long-running thing, or has this just been said? And long-term being, years versus months versus weeks. Like, what's the communication window in which you can kind of like help like massage people's feelings and say, look, I've really been trying. They've really been doing this. It's not
Yeah.
that we haven't tried. It's not for a lack of effort.
I wonder if I could pull up. I have photos with Heather, like having meals with her, so I could pull up some of those.
But those don't
Um,
necessarily tell us that you're telling them or asking them about this whole confusion over, you know, confusion over WordPress and all that.
um,
So
yeah,
I mean
they
that
only
in the
posted
nicest
text
possible way. I'm
messages
not trying to
from.
get you. This is not a gotcha stream.
Yeah,
If you haven't noticed, I'm really just trying to let you say the answers
yeah.
you wish to say.
So what would be helpful there? Like, would a email from like
It's more
months
for you.
ago
Like
help,
if
or like
this is something you can
yeah,
release at some point, showing we've tried. Like the communication isn't just simply me texting, "Hey, I'm going to nuke you if you don't do X," right? Like because that's what's
yeah,
being portrayed. So obviously, just for you yourself, you probably want something that's a little bit maybe better in that kind of world. But the second one is just, are
So
there
let's
more
see.
the
I
WP
just
being?
changed my Google Calendar.
Yep.
So here's some receipts. So I have meetings with Heather Brunner, who's the CEO of WP Engine, October 8th of 2018. Um, did a call. I had breakfast with her November 30th of 2018. I did a Zoom with her October 9th of 2019. Um, we did a Zoom on June 15th of 2020. Um, I met her in person in Austin on October 26th of 2021. I had lunch with her in Houston on February 2023. We had a call on November 23rd of 2023. We had a call before my sabbatical, January 26th of 2024, and January 28th of 2024. We were really trying to close this deal before my sabbatical in January. So is that helpful?
Yeah. Again, like what were they about and all that. Yeah, obviously you can answer that. I'm just saying for writing, if there's a blog post or something, I think it would help a lot of people understand that this is a long-term matter and not an urgency short-term. Because from the perspective, like my
Yeah.
perspective of just reading the legal docs and this, it feels like an out of the blue item. So, but I mean, there's half the people saying no, WP Engine really are bullies, and the other half saying no, you're the bully. So it's very confusing to try to be like, okay, who's the half that's telling the truth, right? This is like the classic who's the bad guy, and you have to choose one, and you don't want to mess this up. And so,
I hope that people look at my history of, you know, contributions to open source, charitable contributions, transparency. I open source a lot of my life. It's my philosophy. If you look at what Automatic's done, even when we've acquired apps like Pocket Cast, we open source it. We're switching Tumblr to WordPress. Like we're very, very, very pro open source. We give tons back. So
yeah,
my money's where my mouth is, to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars of contributions to open source over the years.
yeah. Yeah, and someone did state in chat that cutting off access to your services as soon as someone threatens legal action is completely reasonable. It is true. Anytime you say the word sue or lawyer or anything on any business call anywhere, it has been always highly uh, required that you immediately hang up and just say we have to talk to lawyers now. So I do get that. Once
Imagine
there's
I
legal
had a
action mentioned,
store.
I
Yeah.
get that.
Imagine I had a store that was giving away free ice cream, and then someone across the street is, taking legal action against me. Do I need to open my door and give them free ice cream still?
Yeah.
Like, what's the obligation there?
I mean, it does make sense. I can reason about that one. And so the other question, which is still,
They still have access to the code, by the way. All the
yeah,
code's GPL. They can host it themselves. They can run their own update servers. They can host their own plugin directories. They can do all of that. They just don't want to because it costs money and they're trying to make more profits. They would probably have to spend tens of millions a year to replicate an engine what they get for free from WordPress.org.
yeah. No, I get content delivery is not, as simple as it is, it's also exceptionally complicated. All right. So, and then of course the only other one is just still the trademark stuff. You don't even have to say who because you don't have to do that. But are there other people in which you have pursued and they have been fine paying, or do you have a measurement that you use?
Sure. So there's a number of hosts that we recommend on WordPress.org. So you can assume all of those are in very good relations. And I think I've said publicly before that Newfield Digital, which owns a bunch of hosts like HostGator and Bluehost and other things, um, they actually have a commercial license to the WordPress trademark. So they're allowed, just like Automatic is, to use WordPress in a more commercial way. They can call things WordPress plans. They can use WordPress in their advertising, stuff like that.
Okay. Okay. Well, cool. Thank you for attempting to clear up there. Always give you
Thank
the
you so
last
much.
word. Is there anything you want to say that could help clarify or help people understand your positioning or anything? You can take as long or as little as you'd like.
Hmm. Um, well, do know that if this is successful, um, WP Engine is going to lose a lot of customer. Silver Lake stands to lose billions of dollars. So they are going to pull out every dirty trick, every smear campaign, Cambridge Analytica stuff, Palantir. They're going to try to attack and smear me and Automatic and WordPress.org as much as possible. So, if you see terrible stuff about me coming out, I don't know. Like, just know that there's probably someone paying for that. Um, that's one thing I'll say. And two, I'll just say, thank you all for listening. Thank you for engaging. Thanks for allowing me to come on. Like, I really appreciate it. Um, Even if I hope it shows, like, WP Engine is not doing things like this. And so I'm trying to engage and be public. And I'm happy to have calls with people. I'm happy to talk to anyone who wants to talk about this. Like, I'm really, like, as a community leader, I feel it's like my obligation to spend time with community members. And over the weekend, I've spent probably 10 plus hours and Zoom calls with different community members and talking to people and things like that. So, like, I also run a company called Automatic with 1,900 people, so I'm very busy. But like, I
Yeah.
am making the time for the community as well, and I hope this is an example of that. So, thank you.
Sorry, just to be completely real, if Lex Friedman asks a question, I'm going to give him the stage here. He said, "How can WP Engine best support open source? Donate to WordPress.org, and what amount do you think is good?" P.S. Thank you for everything you have done for open source and the web in general.
Yeah. So, based on what I understand about WP Engine's business, I think, and also how much they profit off WordPress and WooCommerce, um, I believe that a fair amount was 8% of the revenue, and that could either be paid as a trademark license to Automatic, and we would hire a bunch of engineers and put more, people on the core and things like that, or they could do that themselves, hire people and contribute them to the core. So, um, yeah,
And you
that's
technically
that's
said that
what.
they could give back hours or
Yeah,
pay Automatic, and you were fine with either giving to WordPress, like donating engineering hours, or actual cashola, so long
100%.
as it was
Yeah,
either or.
and I think we'll actually try to publish the term sheet. It's a one pager. It's very simple and short, so you can see exactly what they could do any combination of that as well. So,
Okay.
um, that's how they could give back. And by the way, WordPress would be way better if they did.
Yeah, I mean, any piece of software that would get millions of dollars worth of engineering effort would always get better. So that's, I mean,
And people are saying
absolutely.
8% might seem like a lot. Like, think of how much tech companies spend on R&D. You know, the budget's usually like 10, 15, 20%. And that's what they create the software that they offer to customers. So WP Engine doesn't have to do that, right? They don't have to make WordPress or WooCommerce. They just get the open source code and they sell it to people. So actually 8% would fit perfectly into the business model. Again, they would still be making tens of millions of dollars in profit per year, if they pay this fee.
Okay. Awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate you coming on. I hope that you get some good sleep. Obviously, I'm sure you'll have tons of
Thank you.
communication and a ton of time spent clarifying the same question 900 times. So I do
And I
not
know I
envy
mixed
your position.
metaphors. I had bad sleep last night. I had good sleep. I can when I said I sleep soundly, I feel comfortable with my decisions. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, I did have bad sleep last night. So sorry
Awesome.
about that.
Have
Thank
a
you. Bye bye.
take care. Hold on. Let me just join the room, join the call. Let me leave the call. There we go. We got it all set up. There we go. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Hopefully everyone appreciated that. I really wanted to try to give the best possible interview that I could just then. It's a very difficult one because it's very hard to cut through what is and isn't truth in this situation. And I really wanted to make sure that he had the chance to answer all the questions. And I'm not going to lie to you, I banned a couple of you during it because you guys just weren't being good. Like, I don't care if you say, like, hey, I don't like what he's doing, and I really feel like these things aren't good. Or even if you said, yes, it's very hard, the prime gen. Or even if you said, like, I don't like those answers. That's totally reasonable thing to say. But let's try not to just do like blatant walls of giant exclamation points of just like, I hate that guy. Like, of course, I'm just going to ban you. You're not helping me reason through and try to also understand, like, because the thing is I use this chat also as a form for me to understand what to ask. Rule 1, don't be a dick. Like, that's true. Rule 2, see Rule 1. And so I was trying to give you the best possible chance to see what he was about. And so I do want you guys to understand that. Where my message is classed as being a dick, I think there's 1 or 2 of them that got close. You got close. You were getting dick close. I wouldn't say you were fully on. You weren't dick riding, but you were definitely dick close, okay? Just unban everyone. I did that not too long ago. I actually did unban everybody. So you'll notice that I'm not commenting now on any of his answers. The reason why I'm not going to comment on any of his answers is I tried to do the best interview I could so that anybody in the real world can now go dick adjacent. It was definitely you were dick adjacent. Can now go and make judgments for themselves. That way, it's not my opinion. It can be your opinion from the source, right? I personally, that's like the best way you can do it, is that you don't take my ideas. Instead, you take his ideas. Yeah, if Heather could get on, I would let Heather on right now. If people knew who Heather was and they wanted her on, then I would be glad to have her on. But my guess is that, can I be real here for a second? Matt coming on was not what I was expecting. Typically, when you're legal/legal adjacent, the idea is you never speak about it. So I was very, very shocked that they did that. Yeah, so if Heather was just like, hey, I'll talk about it, of course, I would let Heather on any day of the week. Anyways, pick. Yeah, let the lawyers take care of it. Yeah, that's why I was so surprised. Honorable appearance. Brave. I will give him brave. I'll give him honorable appearance. That was super cool. That was a well-balanced and well-composed interview to do with zero prep prime. Yeah, I know. I was not ready to do an interview with